All right, so we have a great stretch series today. We're going to go through mainly upper back and shoulder stretches for today. We're going to do 5 movements total. We're going to do them for 10 to 15 reps per side. You could always do more or less at home as you follow along. The great part about today's class is it's very simple to do. All you need is a bench. It's a nice, easy, relaxing stretch that has a lot of benefit for your golf game, for your rotation, and it's really focusing on getting that upper back or that thoracic spine moving better and feeling better. All right, so for our first movement in our warm-up, we're going to grab a seat. We're going to get seated nice and comfortable. We're going to put our hands up on our knees, on our thighs here, and we're just going to start working that upper back, upper body rotation. So all we're going to do is one side at a time. We're going to slide the hands. We're going to turn our upper back and our neck from one side to the other side. Just warming up that thoracic rotation, getting everything moving nice and smooth. Right? This is a super simple warm-up to do. You could do it even if you didn't want to follow along with the video. This is an easy way to follow along right away, just get a feel for it. And sometimes just because something is simple, we start to think that maybe it's not effective or it's kind of a poo-poo exercise drill. I'm just making up easy stuff to make content. This is not true for this range of motion. So your thoracic spine is one of your main rotation points for your golf swing or anything you do with rotation. So when we think about our backswing, our downswing, our follow through, right, one of the main points or the biggest turning point that we have in our body is our shoulders and our back, our upper back, right? So the combination of that along with our hips rotating is what gives us that big full 90-degree turn in our backswing. So if we're limited in the range of motion we have here, we're going to be limited in the range of motion we have in our backswing, or we're going to have to use other parts of our body. So like we have to over-rely on our lower back, we have to sway, we have to slide, we have to do all kinds of compensations to get to that backswing. So the point is, make sure you have good rotation in your thoracic spine. About 45 to 60 degrees per side of just thoracic rotation is kind of the norm. But just going for what you have. So you don't need to drive it extra, try and drive extra range of motion through. You just want to establish your baseline and work through nice and smooth. So exercise number 1, what we're going to do is we're going to do a sprinkler we're going to think of. So we're going to take one hand, put it straight out. We're going to take our other hand and put it behind our head. So with this right hand, I'm going to think about reaching forward. I'm going to drive my fingers forward. And with this left elbow, I'm going to open it up. So I'm creating this turn in my upper back. Right? So I'm keeping the head forward. And I'm rotating, I'm reaching. I want to make sure in this one, I'm not doing too much of my ribs rotating. I'm trying to keep everything nice and still. I'm trying to really reach and create that kind of turn and torque in my back. So as I reach forward, I'm also twisting back. So I'm creating this turn. So nice and smooth, heads forward, reaching out, and back. Right? 10 to 15 reps a side, a little more, a little less, depending how you feel. Nice and smooth through. Right, when we're done, we'll do the same thing on the other side, hand behind, reaching straight forward, right? So we're reaching out and open. Right, we call these the sprinklers because anybody thinks of a sprinkler head. If anybody's from the 90s dance parties, the sprinkler dance was a big hit, right? So same idea, same concept, nice and smooth, working through. So for the next drill, we're going to work a little bit more of a global range of motion for our upper back, our thoracic spine. And you can grab either a ball in front of you if you want, or you can just simply cross your arms across your shoulders. And what we're going to do is this. We're going to think of our upper back in a couple different ranges of motion. So motion number 1, we're going to kind of tuck our chin, and we're going to round forward. We're then going to rotate out to one side, right, as far as we can comfortably. And then from here, we're going to dip our shoulder down, pouring water out of the ear, pouring water out of the side. We're going to bring our chest up toward the ceiling. We're extending back, rotating to the other side, back to start, back to tall. We're going to repeat the same thing then on the other side. So we're going to round forward. We're going to turn to one side. We're going to pour that water out of the one side. We're going to drive our chest up toward the ceiling. Nice and smooth, rotate around, and back to start. So the key when you go through these is we want to do it with as much body control as possible. So the goal isn't to just go fast and kind of whip through this range of motion and get a lot of reps. This isn't endurance. This isn't strength that we're working on. We're working on really just mobilizing all these different ranges of motion of your thoracic spine and your upper back. So nice controlled movements. Better to probably start small as you go through, so maybe a smaller circle, nice and controlled, and then work to a bigger circle versus trying to max out your ranges of motion the first couple of reps, especially if this is something new that you haven't done much of. You want to start small, work it around, and then expand that range of motion as you go through. So again, the goal is we're just trying to mobilize different vertebrae in our back and our thoracic spine and really control and maybe put your back into some positions that you don't get into that often. So we want to think about this as we're just kind of taking our upper back through a nice test drive, and we're putting some inputs into it that maybe we don't normally get into. So the goal of that is to just create range of motion, get some blood flow to the different points, right? Keep the range of motion fresh so your body's not stuck in kind of an oh shit position when you get there. So what I mean by that is something happens in life, we do something, maybe you're in a car, or you turn, you suddenly grab something, and you get into this weird bended position or different back positions, right? Those are called oh shit positions because they're positions that maybe you don't often get into. So we're getting into those positions, but in a nice controlled and safe range of motion, with the goal being work on being there so your body's not surprised when we do get there, for one, and also we're working on rotation of your thoracic spine, which is a major rotation point in your golf swing. Right, nice and smooth. So for this next exercise, we're going to work on shoulder range of motion and keeping the shoulder mobile, active, and moving well. So I have a ping pong paddle here just to help demonstrate the two sides of where the hand position needs to be. So I'm going to put the red side palm up, and I'm going to put the black side palm down here for now. So I'm going to get up nice and tall, and the first thing we're going to do, so I have the red side in. I'm going to think about keeping my spine straight, nice and neutral. How far up can I go until I need to compensate in order to get more range of motion? So what I mean by that is, this is my end point before I have to either lean my body back or turn my body to get more range of motion. So number one, find where your end point is, right? So for me, this is my end point right here, right? So from this position now, what I'm going to do is think of the whatever the hell this thing's called, the ping pong paddle. Think of the ping pong paddle, right? So I'm going to take the red side, I'm going to rotate the red side down as I reach back, internally rotating, and then I come to rest at this back position. Now from this back position, I'm going to repeat the same process, but in reverse. So now the black side is facing out. I'm going to reach back as far as I can to my end point, right? So once I reach that end point where I would have to compensate or do something to get more range of motion, I'm going to then turn back to the red side, rotate, and back over, right? So the goal is to get as much rotation and movement out of this shoulder as possible without compensation from other parts of our body. So we're working this range of motion nice and smooth, right? Controlling the range of motion, one side to the other. Nice and easy up, rotate, same thing back down, right? So the reason we're working our shoulders is, same thing we talked about before, we don't want to get into any bad positions and our body not be used to being there. So for example, let's pretend you're driving in your car, one day you reach back to grab something, you're now in this internally rotated and extended position for your shoulder. So if you do something like this drill, or if maybe you do some exercise in that position, no big deal, your body's used to being there. If you're somebody, though, that never gets into this position, you're losing range of motion in your shoulders, number one. And number two, your body's not prepared for the instance where it just happens to get in that position for whatever the reason is. So this is a simple way to work on that. So same thing, other side, demonstration, red side up, black side down, nice and tall. We're limiting rotation and extension, flexion in our spine, our upper back. Right? So we're going to hit our end range, find it, rotate, back and around. Right? Same thing in reverse. Big rotation and around. Right? Really working that shoulder range of motion. Same concept in mind. Whatever your range of motion is, that's fine. If it's only to here until you have to compensate, that's where you stop and you just work that range of motion a little bit smaller. Right? So whatever your range of motion is, the goal is to work that range of motion, keep that range of motion, and then over time, you want to slowly build more and more range of motion. Because what we're doing here is building more strength, more mobility in our joints, and ultimately having a body that works better and moves better. All right, so next one from here, we're going to start expanding on that rotational movement. So we're going to take one arm, we're going to put it on our inside hand, and we're going to rotate to the other side. So what I'm going to do with this hand is I'm going to think about reaching down and across, and then I'm going to extend up and open at the top. So I'm reaching down and across, nice and smooth, up and across at the top. So one thing I want to make sure when I reach forward is I don't get too much forward bend. It's okay to bend our upper back a little bit. Since we're seated though, we don't want to overly round forward with our low back because we especially don't want to twist too much out of that low back. So be aware, we're already seated, so our hips are relatively stable. Just be aware of where our low back is in space. Don't overly round forward when we're going through. Right? Keep the chest nice and neutral as we reach through. Inhale, reach up. Exhale. When I exhale, I like to also think about reaching down with this hand. I pull this hand back a little bit as I reach down. Up and open. Nice and smooth down. Big inhale. Up and open. All right. Same thing, 10 to 15 reps. That's just kind of a general, generic set and rep scheme, or rep scheme. So go with feel more than anything. If this feels good, if you feel really tight here, if you feel like this is challenging, that's a sign that you maybe need to spend some more time here. So don't get stuck on 10 to 15 reps. That's just a general, generic kind of recommendation. Just do what feels right in this position, right? Working that range of motion nice and smooth, right? Again, always start small. Build up to more range of motion as you go through and you get comfortable with the motion, especially if it's something new or something that you haven't done much of, or you don't feel that comfortable, you feel a little bit limited in that range of motion. Right, so same thing other side, inside hands down. Right, we're reaching across. Up and open. Down and across. All right, so that completes the stretching series from the seated position. This is a great little drill to do. I work on it all the time if I'm sitting around on the couch, sitting in a chair, basically any place. It's a nice, easy, I don't want to call it lazy, but it's a more relaxed class to go through, and it has a huge carryover and a huge benefit for the amount of rotation you have in your thoracic spine, your shoulders, your upper back. So working on it, putting some time into it, putting some effort into working those ranges of motion will pay dividends later on in your golf game and also your health. I hope you guys enjoyed the series. Please like, subscribe, comment on maybe other suggestions or things you'd like to see. Let's improve our bodies, improve our health, and ultimately improve your golf game.